welcome to our brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on the Egyptian-Russian relations and the bilateral ties between both countries. As we have seen over the past week, the visit paid by Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati to Moscow and his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as the talks that took place between himself and his counterpart from Russia, Sergei Lavrov, on Friday. The talks also discussed a number of important files, including the Doba nuclear power plant, the economic cooperation in terms of grain and energy, as well as the efforts to de-escalating the situation and the tensions in the region, with a handwritten message sent from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi through Dr. Badr Abdulati to the Russian President, and Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, inviting President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be visiting Moscow as soon as possible and to be shedding more light on the latest developments in the region, as well as the Egyptian-Russian bilateral relations. I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ehab, Youssef, the security and the strategic expert. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. It's a great honor to be with you, and I appreciate you accepting me as part of this show to talk to your audience.
The honor is all mine, but we'll be starting straight away with the main top stories that took place for today, as upon directives by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdulati conducted separate phone calls with the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and a number of foreign ministers in the region, including his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi. The talks tackled the proposals for de-escalating the regional tensions. Foreign Minister Abdulati stressed the necessity of prioritizing wisdom to reduce the tension and avoiding further escalation and destruction. He asserted the importance of giving more weight to dialogue and diplomacy to preserve security, stability, and achieve the common interest. Dr. Ehab, how do you see the efforts of Egypt, and not just by Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati, but on a higher level with the presidential level and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi having a lot of visits conducted to the GCC countries and meeting with the leaders of Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia as well. But today we have seen separate phone calls conducted by Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati according to the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be de-escalating the situation in the region and to be trying to be stopping the war and to see what will happen according to the ultimatum given by the U.S. President Donald Trump to the Iranian officials, and it will be ending tomorrow.
As you know, and maybe a lot of our audience has noticed the direct message that came out of President Sisi to President Trump during one of his speeches recently, 1 or 2 days ago, when he said that he is sure, the President Sisi said that he is sure that President Trump is the only one who can take action to stop this war and to make peace back into this region. And our President said that he is conveying the message for him to try to stabilize the region and to make peace happen. And he said that he believes that President Trump can do so. So as you said, on a strategic level, on a country decision, the President and his chamber of that's working with him is trying to do their best to stabilize and to bring peace back to the region. The President went to the Gulf countries in 2 direct visits. He visited 2 countries on each visit,
Yes.
Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and we are trying to play a huge role between all the region players and the Americans and the Europeans and the Russians as well, to try to bring peace back to the table, because this war will end with no victory. No one will come up saying that he is raising the victory flag and saying that I won the war, because it's dramatic. As we see now, economy is getting bad everywhere. People are suffering internationally, not just in our region, even in Europe and Australia, in Russia, in United States. Everybody is suffering from the supply chain, from the increase of fuel prices, and it's not sustainable, and nobody can see what will be the future. So the only thing that can come up with logic or with sense is what Egypt is doing now. They're trying to open discussions between the parties. And it's not a secret to tell that our intelligence was the only institution internationally that was able to open the gate for the communication with the Iranians. So this brings back to the table the discussion with the Iranians, which was very difficult at that point. So now we have the Quattro, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey are playing a huge role after this channel has been opened through our intelligence. So Egypt is not, I mean, we're not just bluffing, we're not just giving words, but we are taking action on the ground, opening channels, communicating with leaders, asking to stop this war, and try to play a mediator role between all the parties.
Speaking of mediation today, we have seen the phone calls conducted between Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and the Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi. How do you think discussions took place between all three of them, of course, in different or separate phone calls?
The point is, each party is, each one of the two sides, I mean, the Iranians and the Americans, and when we say Americans, we mean Americans and the Israelis as well. Each one is sticking to his point of view, I mean, and it might be challenging to say that one of them will withdraw completely from his agenda and accepting the other party's agenda. Negotiation has to take place, and I mean, with negotiation, you have to give things and
a compromise.
A compromise.
Yes.
But what's happening now is that the Iranians still feel that they are achieving and succeeding on the ground, which is really happening, and it's shocking the United States. And at the same time, the United States has the strengths and the power on their hand, but still they face things which they are not expecting, like the F-35, the A-10, which failed recently. So dramatic things are happening on the ground. The Americans and the Israelis thought that it's going to be an easy win. Apparently it's not. So decision makers, I think, that recalculating. And then this is where we, as Egyptians, are coming with the sense of mind to ask people to go and stop being stubborn about what they want and to open the discussion for negotiation. At the end of the day, if things stay as is, it will. Nobody knows how long can the United States sustain what they're doing financially, economically, and moving soldiers off the ground. And we see that there are a lot of demonstrations happening in Europe and in the United States against the decision that the government take and the president take. And at the same time, the Iranians are very, they are suffering from what is happening, but still they are supporting their country they want to sustain. Whether the United States will escalate, as you said, there are 2 days left or one day left, whether the United States will escalate and they will bomb sources of energy in Iran or not, this might be a turning point in the situation.
Speaking of the U.S. President and his statements for today with Fox News, he stated that there is a good chance that an agreement could be reached between the United States, Israel, and Iran today at the most. Can we believe him this time?
Let's hope for the best. I mean, this is our hope. I mean, bringing peace to the table, bringing stability to the region, saving lives for people who are suffering from this war, and whether they're injured or killed or dramatic changes that are happening in their life. This is the ultimate dream that everybody with human sense would look into and will be asking God to support the people who are trying to take this road. Whether it's going to be doable or not, I think depending on the agenda from both sides and depending on the losses and I mean the checks and balances of what they achieve, what they lose, what they might be achieving in the future. The only thing that from my point of view, as if we talk strategically, the only thing that Americans are counting on is the duration of the war, which they can extend it to, I think, 2 other weeks maximum from my point of view, and putting boots on the ground. These are the 2 solid things.
Can they put boots on the ground
this
in Iran?
This is the real question. Will the American people accept to go back into another Vietnam or another Afghanistan or...
And they haven't won any of those wars.
Exactly, exactly. And when Trump came into his post in the Oval Office, he said that he will never going to send troops abroad and he will never go into ask for war. Though he said that he deserved the peace prize because he's stabilizing the region and the world. He said that, and he's trying to stop the wars everywhere. So now what's happening is really against what we heard at the beginning.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of the activities of Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati for today, he stressed the importance of prioritizing diplomacy and dialogue to prevent the region from sliding into widespread chaos. This came during a phone call between the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Abdulati, and his Spanish counterpart, José Manuel Alvarez. During the meeting, they discussed the developments in the intensive contacts and the diplomatic efforts undertaken by Egypt to de-escalate the tensions in the region, as well as the situation in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank and Lebanon. The foreign minister praised the Spanish government's stance toward the Palestinian cause. Abdulati reiterated the necessity of completing the implementation of the second phase of the U.S. President Donald Trump's plan, beginning the work of the National Committee for the Administration of the Gaza Strip from within the Strip, and the deployment of the International Stabilization Force. This also includes the opening of the Rafah border crossing in both directions, and ensuring the flow of the humanitarian aid without restrictions or obstacles in order to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. Dr. Ehab, how do you see the importance of Egypt raising the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian question at every possible opportunity today within the discussions taking place between the Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati and his counterpart from Spain, José Manuel Alvarez, and the importance of implementing the second phase of the Gaza peace plan, or the Gaza Strip peace plan?
Exactly. This is very important, because if Egypt doesn't raise this flag and doesn't talk on behalf of the Palestinians and bringing back this topic to the table every day possible, it will somehow die within what's happening in the region. You still have what's happening between Israel, American and Iran, Russia and Ukraine, and so there are a lot of dramatic things that are happening everywhere. And the Israeli troops are using this to take action on the ground against the Gaza people and the Palestinians, and even in Quds. So if Egypt doesn't keep an eye on this, trying to remind the people and remind the leaders that they have a responsibility to the humanity and to the people living, then it might fall till people notice it after days, and at that time it might be difficult to take the actions which you can take now. And this takes us to, if you don't mind, I mean, talking about the new law that has been issued in the Knesset.
Yes.
I think that
to
this
be executing the Palestinian prisoners.
Exactly. This is against human rights, against humanitarian law, and against international standards. And if the United Nations does not take action, I mean, against Israel to stop this law from being used and to withdraw it back, then the United Nations will lose its value, and this will take us back to eras and eras where there was no law to respect. So, I mean, we are facing changes internationally. We're facing a new era that will happen anyway. Whatever will happen, and whoever will win in the Iranian-American war that's happening now, there will be a new region, whether it's Sykes-Picot II, or whether it's good for the Arabs to get united and to understand that we cannot live in isolation from each other. But what I want to say is that there will be a new shape of the Middle East in the future, whether it's good or bad, but it's still something will happen. And this is where countries like Egypt and countries who are not in first line of defense with what's happening, and who has a strategic vision, can try to shape the future to the benefit of the region itself.
Yes, and the final top story and the final activity of Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati took place today as he convened with Ambassador Youssef, the newly appointed head of the State Information Service, the SIS, over coordination between the ministry and the agency to boost the official media messages. Abdulati congratulated Youssef on his new post, expressing confidence in his ability to manage the SIS at this critical phase. He stressed the pivotal role of the SIS in delivering a balanced and credible message that reflects Cairo's policies and objectives on the local and the international levels. And heading to the main topic for today on the Daily Debate, we'll be having the upcoming report about the Egyptian-Russian relations and their efforts to be de-escalating the tensions in the region, so stay tuned.
Egypt and Russia are maintaining a strategic and historical partnership strengthened by major economic projects, including the $28 billion Al-Daba nuclear power plant and a Russian industrial zone near the Suez Canal. Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdulati affirmed in a press conference with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow that Egypt is working with Russia and other concerned parties to de-escalate the conflict in the Middle East. The foreign minister said during the conference that they will continue working with Pakistan and Turkey to prioritize the path of diplomacy, stop regional escalation, and ensure the security and freedom of navigation. Abdulati stressed Egypt's intensive efforts to reach a political solution to the war in Iran through adopting dialogue and negotiation mechanisms and avoiding the use of force. He further emphasized de-escalation, warning against targeting civilian and energy facilities and disrupting navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The Egyptian foreign minister said that military solutions lead to destruction and instability. He also warned of the global consequences of the ongoing military escalation in the region. For his part, Lavrov said that Moscow is coordinating with Cairo at the UN regarding the war in Iran. He reaffirmed that the two countries have called for a political and diplomatic settlement to the war there. During the conference, Abdulati said that the implementation of major Russian projects in Egypt is clear proof of the strategic and historic relations between Egypt and Russia. He expressed his aspiration to see the Russian industrial zone in Egypt become a global manufacturing and export platform. In return, Lavrov emphasized the resilience of the historic relations between Cairo and Moscow. He affirmed that these relations have endured despite difficult challenges. Moreover, Lavrov emphasized the significant progress made on three major Russian projects in Egypt. Bilateral cooperation focuses on energy, agricultural trade and tourism. Recent 2026 diplomatic talks have prioritized the regional stability in Gaza, Libya and Iran conflict alongside enhancing military ties.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ehab, Youssef, the security and the strategic expert. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. The pleasure is all mine. We will be shedding more light on the important visit by Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati to Russia and his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. And we start with the importance and the significance of such a visit and the timing of it. How do you see it?
If you allow me, I'll first congratulate Ambassador Ala Youssef on his new position. Yes. And I think it's well deserved, and we have a great trust on his view on how to deliver the message to international media and international community, yes, which is very important. As you said, now our foreign minister is in direct contact with all the ministers abroad, and he traveled today to Russia and he met the president. He did a press conference with the Russian foreign minister. If this is not conveyed in the right message, in the right way of messaging to the international community, it will not going to achieve what it wants. what we are targeting are two things. Working on the political level with the leaders, trying to convey the message that we want and try to set up a way for the future to help people to get out of this crisis, and at the same time trying to convey the message to the society, to the people on the street, so they can be like a judge or can be like a dynamic that will pressure their leaders to take the action on the right direction. So going back to the Minister Badr Abdelati's visit to Russia, I think it was very successful. He held a direct message or a direct report from President Sisi to President Putin, and he took another message on his way back to the President Sisi.
Yes.
When you look to the way they were sitting around the table, you can tell from the body language that there is a great respect to the President delegation, the President Sisi delegation,
yes,
which is Dr. Badr Abdelhadi and his people, because in some old meetings, President Putin used to have his own protocol. So he sat on the head of the table and the other one is sitting like 10 meters away on the other side of the table. Now when he's sitting this close to Dr. Badr Abdelhadi, it shows one, respect. Second, that he is cautiously listening to what is the message. Three is that he will deliver the right message to be delivered to our president as well. This is from a side, which is very important. From another side, on a strategic level, the relation between Egypt and Russia is very crucial and very important, especially on this moment of time, as you said. Now, a lot of countries are divided. If you look into the United States, taking side of Israel against Iran, European Union is divided, but no one is trying to get engaged in this war. Russia is, China and other countries are watching carefully, so reaching out to all the sides is very important. This is what Egypt is doing now. They're reaching out to all of the sides, especially Russia. Russia, we have strong ties with them, historical relation all days. At the same time, on this period of history, we are working together economically on forming an industrial zone in the Suez Canal. We are forming, we are using their expertise in building our nuclear planet for energy, which will save us a lot of destruction in the future. As you know, energy is the source of where things can be happening, and without energy, people cannot sustain and deliver. And at the same time, I'm sorry, at the same time, working together to try to stabilize the region and try to open the straits like Hormuz, like Bab el-Mandab, to facilitate and to make easy for the supply chain for all the countries. And this is where the leaders come together. So when Egypt, Russia try to pressure others to respect the international law, this, I think, it will be very helpful.
Dr. Ehab, you mentioned a very important point, which is the respect that the Egyptian state and the Egyptian political leadership had gained under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi ever since taking office in 2014. There is a rapprochement between Egypt and Russia, Egypt and the United States, as we have seen the US President Donald Trump here in November and signing together with His Excellency President al-Sisi on the plan to be stopping the fighting and the aggression by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians. And we have seen the same respect given by the European Union leaders to Egypt and vice versa, to be raising the strategic partnership between Egypt and the EU in the past couple of years as well. So how do you see this has increased the amount of respect given to the Egyptian people, to the Egyptian state under the political leadership of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi since 2014?
If you have to, I mean, when we talk about this point, we have to look back into 2013, where Egypt was ruled by the Muslim Brotherhood, and we were, I mean, 99% of the Egyptians were against the way they managed the country and the threat they did to everybody. And when Egypt decided to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood, the people went to the street demonstrating against them. And at that time, Egypt was faced by opposition internationally. In 2014, where President Sisi took over the leadership role and he became the president appointed by the people, there was an opposition from the international community. So being able to change this like 180 degrees from 2014 till like 2020, let's say,
Yes.
and being able to reach back to the African Union, to international community, being respected and met by leaders in Germany and the United States and everywhere. This means
Especially
that
by the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin,
Russia.
to be receiving the Egyptian president back then, and right now the officials from Egypt, there is a big difference.
Exactly. So this is very important, and this shows that you have gone a long way, showing how you're dealing with your people, how respectful you are trying to support the international community, and what is your role in. Nobody takes his seat on the table for free. I mean, if you're able to take a seat on the table, that means that you are contributing to the international community.
Yes.
And when you do this, then people started to respect you and to feel that you are adding value to the things. And this is what's happening now. So the message has been delivered. People, international leaders, has understand the role of Egypt, understand the importance of its role to continue, and respect the leadership. And this is an important part of it.
Doctor, you mentioned the messages going back and forth between the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and even extending an invitation to President al-Sisi to be visiting Moscow and Russia in the near future. What does this say about the bilateral relations and the future of relations between Egypt and Russia under President al-Sisi and President Putin?
We cannot deny that Russia is one of the strongest countries international in the world, from when we talk about military, economically, and several points. And when you're talking about Egypt in the region, Egypt is the strongest country in the region. And when we talk about military and we talk about the human factor in Egypt. So the two countries can do a lot of efforts and can do a lot of balancing in the region, especially with what's happening in the Gulf countries and the GCC. This is from one side. From another side, as you said, the economic relations is getting better and better. We're targeting to establish the manufacturing area in the free zone, in the Russian manufacturing area, and hopefully it's going to be open soon. And when we talk about the power and the nuclear power plant that is built now, and when it's operating, this will save Egypt a lot of interruption that might happen in the future, because we never know how energy and resources will be, especially after what's happening now in the Gulf and Iran and all of these countries. So the dynamic of the region and the geopolitical actions that happening in this area makes it important for stable countries, makes it important for strong and stable countries to get united with a vision to help others to be able to survive.
Doctor, do you think that the current conflict in the region in the Middle East, it is reshaping the traditional balance between Egypt and the Western powers, and Egypt and other powers like Russia and China?
One of the good things that President Sisi took or did since he came into power is that he diversified his resources, whether we talk about economic or military or even educational. So what's happening is that Egypt is in good ties with the EU, with Russia, with China, and was with the United States. Till now, we are trying to use this good relation to stop the war. So what I want to say is, Egypt, during the last 10, 14 years, has tried to reach out to all the countries, trying to get good bilateral relations between Egypt and them in each of their sources, and what can be beneficial for both sides. And this is as you kindly mentioned, it's good that we have this diversification now, because if something happens, we can still have another options to deal with.
Yes, and we have seen the Egyptian mediation trying to be forcing the negotiations between the United States, Israel and Iran in order to be protecting our brothers and sisters in the GCC countries, to say the least. Do you think that the negotiations will be putting into account, especially from the Iranian side, as we have seen for the past month or so, the phone call being conducted between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. And today we have seen Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati speaking over the phone with his counterpart Abbas Araghchi as well. Do you think that Iran, if it retaliated to the deadline, to the ultimatum that is given by the US President to them, will be putting into consideration the warnings of Egypt not to be attacking and targeting the GCC countries once again?
I think it's very important from my point of view to clarify that Iranians are not targeting the GCC.
Yes.
They're targeting the American bases, military bases that are existing on the GCC. And there is a great difference between this and that. So if they target a military base in the from United States troops that have been used to attack Iran, I think it's different than attacking to attack Gulf CCC countries. Because at the end of the day, we are all countries living on the same area. There is no conflict. This conflict has been created between us, the Gulf countries and Iran. And I hope that Arab leaders and Iranian leaders have discovered now that this was a trap to pull the two sides into a war together. So what I want to say is that they have been living together for a while. There was some conflicts, political it might be. Sometimes there are some conflicts, but it doesn't lead into a war. So now if it happens that the Iranians go into a war with the Gulf countries, it might be good for the initiators to leave the region for them, and they can continue their war together, and this will be a dramatic end for this region. So,
but according to the deadline, that the attacks of the United States could be targeting the energy facilities and the installations and the oil wells in Iran, but Iran could be retaliating by hitting and targeting the desalination plants in the GCC countries.
I hope that this will never happen, and let's hope that things might be dissolved or smoothened up. President Trump had gave several deadlines before, and he might extend this one with the pressure of Egypt, and hope other countries, other wise countries, will be doing the same. Because if it turned out to be like this would be very dramatic for everybody.
Regarding the Egyptian foreign policy in general, how would you assess the success that we have had under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as there is a shift, as you mentioned, even within our African continent? During the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, there is more closeness and better relations between us and several African countries and the whole of the continent, as well as the other superpowers around the globe.
That's a success that the Egyptian foreign policy has been made with the leading or the direction of the president. And as I told you, when 2014 came and President Sisi took on the power for being the president, at that time Egypt was out of the African Union. 3-4 years after, we were leading the African Union. We were the president of the African Union, and this shows that during Minister Sameh Shukri, and continued by the efforts that has been done by Dr. Abdulati since he took his new post, things are developing in the right direction, and through 10 years we were able to shift our position from the negative side to the positive side, contributing to the international community, which is the most important. And the good thing is that our wise decisions or our wise advice has been conveyed during this period, and it was always good if it has been received from the other parties, and we hope that the efforts that the Egyptian Foreign Ministry is doing under the presidency auspices and direction during this period, it might lead into something good, and at the same time it will be something that Egyptians will be proud of, to save, as you said, the lives of our brothers, sisters are living in this area.
Regarding the coordination and the cooperation between Egypt and Russia, not just on the field or in the field of energy, as we mentioned, the Daba nuclear power plant, but in terms of food security, because this was tackled as well between Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and the top officials like the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Foreign Minister of Russia Sergei Lavrov. How do you see the importance of coordinating those important matters between Egypt and Russia regarding food security, especially nowadays?
Well, it's very important because, as you know, Russia is one of the biggest suppliers of grains internationally, and at the same time, Egypt is importing most of its wheat from its wheat from Russia. If the supply chain has been interrupted internationally now by closing the straits, and we don't have direct relation with the suppliers as we talk about Russia now, it might cause us a problem. And this is where the foreign relations, leadership relations are always helpful. So when we see now two things are happening. In Russia, we were able to sustain our food supply, which is very important for food security. And at the same time, if we talk about the other country in our west side, Libya, we were able to supply from them the gas for Egypt. And this shows that you have diversity of resources, you have personal relation with the leaders, you have your capabilities to convey the messages and to convince them with what you do, and at the same time, it's a win-win at the end. Nobody is helping you for free. So it's when they see that you are capable of helping them in the future, or at least being one of the powers that are used to stabilize the region. And this is what the Russian Foreign Minister said, that Egypt and Russia are working together in the United Nations to try to solve the problem. This is where you have your role on the international layer.
Regarding food security as well, do you think that after this visit, Egypt will be deepening the reliance on the Russian wheat imports to Egypt?
And Russia, I'm sorry? On
the Russian wheat imports?
Yes, we are counting. I mean, we import most of our wheat from Russia, and I think that this will continue. And at the same time, as I was just saying, that the supply chains and using the waterways and the free way, to deliver the products, this is very important.
And speaking of energy, after the Strait of Hormuz, there are problems, of course, between the United States and Israel and Iran regarding the passage of certain ships from the Strait of Hormuz. So it pushed Egypt somehow to be having other alliances regarding energy. Do you think that this will be fruitful in the near future?
It is already. I mean, we have started with Libya, and now we are. We're stabilizing our our need from gas in the current period. Everybody is trying to help their community and their people to be able to live peacefully in this period, and with an eye on what's going to happen. And as we were talking, you're trying to have food security, you want to have energy security, you want to have military security, and at the same time, you want to contribute to the international community to make peace around you internationally. And this is where the communication with superpowers like Russia, United States, and China, and EU, I think it will always be very helpful. And as you said, Dr. Badr Abdulati was in direct phone calls with Arab leaders, with the EU, and he was in Russia. All of these are coming with a strategic vision from the country to be able to stabilize the region, hopefully in the future, in the near future.
Yes, Dr. Ehab Youssef, the security and the strategic expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. It's a great honor to be with you. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And this brings us to the end of the daily debate for tonight. However, we'll be leaving you with the latest presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi that took place over the past week, all wrapped up in the upcoming report. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.